Hello y'all. Today I'm coming to you from the middle of the Klamath River Valley in the heart of Northern California, known by some as the middle of Bigfoot territory. Right now I'm not far from where Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured footage of a female Sasquatch. It's the famous video that everyone's seen of the Bigfoot walking along the riverbank. Well, that river is Bluff Creek. And right now, if you can hear the sound of the river rushing in the distance, that is where Bluff Creek flows into the Klamath River. Now, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were two poor cowboys who lived in this area of Northern California in the Klamath Valley. Bob Gimlin was a steady worker. However, Patterson was more enigmatic, doing a lot of odd jobs and switching employment often. However, their lives would change forever when Roger Patterson heard stories from outdoorsmen, both white and native, about the hairy wild men of the woods, the Sasquatch, the abominable snowman of America. The latter, which went on to be the title of the film he was going to make about Bigfoot, for which the infamous 55mm film called the Patterson Gimlin film was taken from. The footage has yet to be officially debunked. In fact, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who's a professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University, shows the Patterson Gimlin film in his classes and asks his anatomy students to pick out muscle groups, which, if it was a fursuit made in the 1960s, which is when the film was taken, they wouldn't have been able to do it. And here's why. The original Planet of the Apes movies came out at about around the same time. And they specifically clothed the apes in long sleeves and long pants because they couldn't make the fur on the bodies look realistic enough. And this is for something that was a fake movie that everyone knew was a fake movie, not for anything that anyone was trying to pass off as real. Just something very interesting to think about. But stories of what we would recognize as an upright primate or ape man don't start with Patterson and Gimlin. In fact, they predate the arrival of Europeans in the West Coast by a long shot. The etymological root of the word Sasquatch comes from Saskets, who were a character in the mythology of the Chehalis people who inhabit what we now call Washington State. The Saskets were considered to be a race of beings that were apart from humans. They lived in the forest. They were big, strong, and hairy, and had many characteristics that we see in common with great apes. Now, the Saskets were not considered to be spirits. They were considered to be as flesh and blood as men, deer, bear, rabbits, and any of the other animals that inhabited this land. Now, earlier today, I spoke with a lady in a museum in the town of Willow Creek, about 30 miles south of where we are right now. Now, Bigfoot lore is a huge part of the culture of Willow Creek. As a matter of fact, their historical museum has a whole section dedicated to Bigfoot or Sasquatch. But it was through talking to this lady that I realized one of the biggest fallacies in understanding the North American primate hypothesis. She kept referring to Bigfoot as a he. Maybe he is out there. Maybe one day we'll find him. But that's not the case. It's not a him. It's a whole species of primates that are indigenous to North America. Probably the only species of primates to call this continent home. Now, many people seem to think that if there really is a Sasquatch, it would be a member of the human family, genus Homo, due mostly to its upright walking. However, there are several key problems with this. The first one is that many supposed Bigfoot footprints have a feature called a mid-tarsal break, as well as flat feet. Now, this is a feature that is key in the anatomy of large primates, specifically great apes. But our family, Homo, lost it due to our ancestral lifestyle as endurance runners, something that is absent from supposed Bigfoot behavior. Other candidates for the family that Sasquatch belongs to are Gigantopithecus, which is a family of large ape. Some call it the greatest ape that ever lived. It's in the orangutan family and lived mostly in Southeast Asia. However, just because we haven't found fossils anywhere else does not mean that there weren't any anywhere else. The other main candidate within the great ape family is Dryopithecus. This was a species of bipedal ape that lived in the hardwood forests of prehistoric Europe. All right, so random update. I thought we were going to the shore of Bluff Creek, but the trail doesn't appear to lead there. We're in the middle of this random clearing, and there is a large trailer with smashed windows that's just sitting right there. There does not appear to be any occupants as far as I can tell. But yeah, this is not what I was expecting to find. Yeah, definitely on the sus side a little bit since I'm in the literal complete middle of nowhere. Also, the trail does not appear to continue at all anywhere, so I'm not sure which way to go from here. All right, y'all, so I think I found the trail again. It's winding down the valley side, which is good news because that means that we're heading towards water, probably. I'm in a bit of a dilemma right now as to whether I should keep going because sketchy smashed windowed trailer and unverified great ape aside, these forests are absolutely crawling with bears, mountain lions, bobcats, and other things that just generally want to give you a bad day. And I am completely by myself and nobody knows I'm here. Right on the list of things to not do. But we're gonna keep going for the time being and see if we can at least get down to the river. Look at this. A landslide must have come through here not long ago. Knocked down some massive fir trees. Wild, wild place, I'll tell you that much. All right, so I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I've been having this deep, uneasy feeling just that I'm in the wrong place. Being out here. Many species of predatory animal use something called infrasound, sound outside of the audible spectrum for humans. Many use it for communication, but the predators, they learn to use it as a weapon. Tigers can focus infrasound to such a degree that they can paralyze their prey with fear. Infrasound can cause episodes of nausea, panic, dread, many things that people associate with Bigfoot encounters. I don't think that's what I'm experiencing though. I mentioned that tigers use infrasound. Lots of big cats do. And we're in the heart of mountain lion territory right now. So just something that I need to keep in the back of my mind as I climb through this absolutely stunning canyon in the middle of Northern California. One of the biggest questions that I'm faced with when it comes to the idea of a large primate existing in North America undetected is, what about the fossil record? Is there even a fossil record of primates in North America? Actually, there is. The oldest primate ever discovered in North America is called Teilhardina magnoliana, and it dates back to about 50 million years ago. And it was a tiny little thing that looked something like a ring-tailed lemur, crossed with a squirrel, crossed with a mouse, crossed with a monkey. It was very primitive. The next primate we find is called Umamie runii, and it dates back to 35 million years ago. Now, why is that relevant? Because the gap between runii and Teilhardina is large, very large, almost a 30 million year gap. But yet we know that the primates had to be there because of the runii fossils. Primates as a whole don't really form a lot of good fossils because of the environments in which they live in. That being wet, damp environments. The reason why there are so many fossils of human ancestors is because we evolved on the arid savannas of Africa, where we evolved to be lethal persistence hunters. Now, our ancestors would die at the watering hole, probably at the hands of a lion or something, and would get compacted into the mud, and there they would stay. But the wet environments of the forests where Bigfoot is purported to live are not conducive to fossils at all. And the same goes for other great apes. The fossil record for chimpanzees and gorillas could fit in the palm of my hand. And the fossil record for other apes and monkeys are scarcely better known. Look at this. The Klamath River Canyon, everyone. You know, I'll tell you something. If I were a Sasquatch, I'd probably live here too. So my path is kind of overgrown with these hard, thorny plants. Seems like no one's been this way in a while. or else they would have been a lot more beaten down than they are. All right, so being out here, I've been thinking a lot about fate, what is up to you, what is predetermined, and whether or not nature has a will. The trail, which is now behind me as I'm heading the other way, was just so overgrown with these hard, thorny plants that were blocking my path, preventing me from gaining entry. No one that I talked to mentioned this part of the woods as being particularly dangerous for a solo hike, but that being said, I don't want to chance being out here when it's dark, because that is a one-way ticket to be falling out of a mountain lion's ass tomorrow. So I've decided to head back away from the valley, and I'll try again at a later time with some other people. Gonna have to put a crew together and come out here again. Maybe I'll even consult the Yurok people about how to safely and correctly navigate these woods, so I don't feel like every rustle, every sound is some form of beast out to get me as I traverse through this wild, wild terrain in the middle of the Klamath Valley, Northern California. All right, so I'm almost out of the woods for today. One reason why I said I was feeling so jumpy and I attributed it to mountain lions is because I've experienced something like that before. When I was on expedition down the Rio Grande in Texas, I went off down a slot canyon to relieve myself. And I wasn't really that far from camp, all things considered. And I all of a sudden, just all the sounds started feeling so much louder, like rocks moving, branches breaking, what have you. And I just got this overwhelming urge to look over my shoulders and to keep doing it. And I wanted to run as fast as I could back to camp. And I had no idea why I was feeling this way. I didn't know what could possibly be happening. And that was until I learned about the effects of infrasound, and that big cats are among one of the many species of predatory animal that use it as a weapon. And besides that, a mountain lion is the only animal, it's the top of the food chain in the Rio Grande Valley, and it's the only animal I can think of that would have that effect on a human being. Coyotes live there too, but I've seen and been around them many times, and they've never had that effect on me, which might also be due to the fact that canines are not known to be able to produce infrasound. Now, not much research has been done into primates and infrasound, which would be very interesting to see. And that's actually one of the points of credence toward the theory of Sasquatch being a descendant of a New World simian or an umamiid like Runii or Teohardina magnoliana, is because we don't know of any great apes that can produce infrasound. And such an ability would probably take quite a long time to evolve in evolutionary time. So that would lend credence to Sasquatch being a much more distant branch of primate than in the same family as gorillas, orangutans, and chimpanzees.